There's a relationship many traders don't realize they're in. Not with a strategy, not with money, not even with risk. It's a relationship with validation. And for a lot of traders, the market has quietly become the judge. On green days, you feel lighter, more confident, more capable. On red days, something inside you tightens. You question yourself. You feel smaller. And in flat, quiet markets, you feel restless, almost invisible. That's not about trading skill. That's about needing the market to tell you who you are. Most traders don't wake up thinking, I need validation today. Instead, it shows up subtly. You want a win to feel calm. You want a trade to work so the day feels meaningful. You want confirmation that your time, effort, and struggle are worth something. So the market becomes more than a place to execute probabilities. It becomes a mirror. And mirrors are dangerous when you don't control what you see. Let's slow this down. Validation is the emotional signal that says, I'm okay. I'm progressing. I belong. In most professions, validation comes from outside. A paycheck, a boss, a promotion, a review. Trading strips all of that away. There is no authority figure, no clear ladder, no guaranteed progress markers. So the brain looks for the next best thing, results. A win becomes proof. A loss becomes rejection. And slowly, without realizing it, your emotional state starts orbiting your profit and loss statement for the day. This is why losing days hurt more than they should. It's not the money. It's the silence, the lack of reassurance, the feeling that nothing confirmed your effort mattered. That's validation hunger, and it's one of the most destabilizing forces in trading. Here's where it gets tricky. Validation seeking doesn't always look emotional. Sometimes it looks like overtrading on slow days, forcing just one more setup. Trading when tired or unfocused, needing to end the day green, feeling unsettled when you don't trade. Those behaviors aren't about edge. They're about needing the market to say something back. Silence feels uncomfortable because silence offers no validation. So traders create activity. And activity feels productive, even when it's destructive. Now let's talk about where this need comes from. Most traders enter the market already doubting themselves. They're transitioning from being good at something structured into something uncertain. They don't fully trust their judgment yet, so they look for confirmation externally. If this trade works, I must be doing it right. That's understandable early on, but if that pattern never changes, it becomes a trap, because markets don't validate consistently. They reward randomness, and randomness cannot support self-worth. This is why traders often feel emotionally exhausted, even when they aren't trading much. They're not just making decisions. They're seeking reassurance. Every trade is loaded with meaning. Every outcome sends a message. And when the message is unclear or negative, the nervous system reacts. Tension, frustration, urgency. Now let's connect this to execution. When you need validation, you don't wait well. Waiting feels like being ignored. You don't size appropriately. Because small wins don't feel validating enough. You don't stop when you should. Because walking away without a win feels unresolved. This is how validation seeking quietly erodes discipline. Not because you're weak, but because you're asking the market to provide something it never will reliably. That's the core mistake. The market is not a judge. It's not a teacher. It's not a validator. It's a probabilistic environment. And when you treat it like an authority on your worth, you hand it emotional control. If this resonates so far, hit the like button and subscribe. These deep dives are designed to help you build emotional independence from the market, not just better trades. Now let's keep going. The real danger of validation seeking is what happens over time. At first, it just feels uncomfortable. Later, it becomes burnout, because you are constantly outsourcing self-worth to something unstable. You're asking randomness to make you feel grounded. And randomness can't do that. This is why even profitable traders can feel insecure. Why consistent traders can still feel pressure. Why confidence never quite sticks. Because confidence built on validation collapses under drawdown. Real confidence is internal. It comes from knowing, I will behave the same way regardless of outcome. That's the shift, and we'll build that in the next part. If you're still with me, here's something important to understand. Needing validation from the market is not a character flaw. It's a developmental stage. Every trader goes through it. The problem isn't that it shows up. It's when it never gets resolved. Early in your trading journey, it makes sense to look outward. You don't yet trust your reads. You don't fully trust your discipline. You don't trust that you'll act the same way under pressure. So you look for reassurance. A winning trade feels like confirmation that you're not wasting your time. A green day feels like evidence that you're moving forward. A clean execution that works feels like permission to believe in yourself. That's normal. But here's where most traders get stuck. They never replace external validation with internal trust. They keep letting outcomes decide how they feel about themselves. And that keeps them emotionally dependent on the market. Let's talk about how this dependency actually forms. Every time you feel better after a win, your brain makes a note. Winning equals safety. Every time you feel worse after a loss, your brain makes another note. Losing equals threat. Over time, these associations strengthen. Soon, you're no longer responding to trades. You're responding to what those trades mean. And meaning drives behavior far more than logic ever will. This is why validation-seeking traders often struggle on quiet days. No setups, no trades, no outcomes. The market is silent. And silence feels uncomfortable because silence offers no feedback, no proof, no reassurance. So the trader feels compelled to act, not because there's opportunity, but because they want to feel engaged. They want to feel relevant. They want the market to acknowledge them. This is one of the deepest psychological traps in trading, because the market does not care. It does not respond to effort. It does not reward persistence emotionally. It does not reassure. And when you expect it to, you create constant internal friction. Now let's connect this to why traders often feel worse after losses than the money would justify. Imagine this scenario. You take a loss. Objectively, it's manageable. But internally, something feels off. You feel smaller, less confident, like you've lost ground emotionally. Why? Because the loss didn't just cost you money. It withdrew validation. It didn't confirm progress. It didn't confirm competence. So the brain reacts as if something important was taken away. That reaction is not logical. It's emotional conditioning. And if you don't interrupt it, it compounds. You start needing wins not just for profit, but for emotional stability. That's when trading becomes exhausting. Because now every day carries emotional stakes. You're not just trading. You're seeking relief. You're seeking reassurance. You're seeking proof. And proof is not always available. Let's talk about how this shows up in decision-making. When validation is the goal, patience feels like risk. Waiting feels like falling behind. You worry that if you don't trade, you're missing something. So you lower your standards. You tell yourself, this is good enough. But deep down, you know it's not. That creates cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance drains energy. Another pattern shows up after wins. Instead of feeling settled, you feel pressure. Pressure to repeat it. Pressure to confirm it wasn't luck. Pressure to maintain the feeling. So you trade the next day with expectation instead of neutrality. And expectation is poison in trading. Because when the market doesn't cooperate, frustration spikes. And frustration leads to forcing. This is how validation-seeking traders swing between emotional highs and lows. They're not unstable because they lack discipline. They're unstable because their emotional anchor is outside themselves. So let's talk about what replaces validation. The answer is not stop caring. The answer is self-trust. But not the kind people usually think of. Self-trust is not confidence. It's not believing you'll win. It's believing you'll behave predictably. It's knowing that regardless of outcome, you'll respect risk, you'll follow rules, you'll stop when you should, you won't chase emotional relief. That kind of trust doesn't come from outcomes. It comes from repetition, from watching yourself do the right thing, even when it's uncomfortable. This is why so many traders feel ungrounded for years. They keep waiting for confidence to appear. But confidence is the result of trust. And trust is built through behavior. Here's a key distinction. Validation says, tell me I'm okay. Self-trust says, I know how to act. One depends on the environment. The other depends on you. When you move from validation to trust, trading changes. You no longer need a win to feel settled. You don't need to trade every day to feel productive. You don't need the market to confirm your effort. You already know what you did, and that knowledge is stabilizing. Now let's make this practical. Here's a simple but powerful daily shift. Before the session, set this intention. My goal today is not to be validated. My goal is to execute cleanly. After the session, ask only one question. Did I behave the way I intended to? Not, did I win? Not, did I recover losses? Not, did the market reward me? Just behavior. This does something important. It moves the source of evaluation inward. And when evaluation is internal, emotional stability increases. Another important practice is learning to tolerate neutral days. Days where nothing happens. Days where you don't trade. Days where the market offers no feedback. Those days are not wasted. They are training grounds. They train you to exist without validation, to be okay without confirmation. That's emotional independence. And emotional independence is what allows consistency to form. This is why some traders improve rapidly once they stop forcing trades. Not because their strategy changed, but because their emotional relationship with the market did. They stopped asking the market to make them feel okay. They started letting execution be enough. That's a profound shift. And it takes time. You won't flip a switch and suddenly feel detached. You will notice urges. The urge to trade when bored. The urge to force a win. The urge to stay longer. Those urges are signals. They're telling you where validation seeking still lives. Don't judge them. Notice them. That awareness alone weakens the pattern. Now here's an important truth. The traders who last the longest are not the most confident. They're the least dependent. They don't need the market to reassure them daily. They don't need constant proof. They have internal metrics. And because of that, they don't burn out. They don't swing emotionally. They don't spiral after losses. They stay grounded. And grounding is the foundation of mastery. In the final part, we'll talk about how to fully replace validation with identity and what it actually feels like when that shift completes. Now let's talk about what happens when validation seeking finally loosens its grip. This is not a dramatic moment. There is no instant clarity, no sudden confidence surge, no permanent calm. What happens instead is quieter. You notice fewer emotional spikes. You notice that red days don't linger as long. You notice that green days don't inflate you the same way. You notice that flat days no longer feel like wasted time. That's how you know the shift is happening. Because the market stops defining your emotional state. And once that happens, trading becomes lighter. Not easier, but lighter. Let's talk about what validation seeking used to do to your nervous system. Every trade carried emotional weight. Every outcome sent a message. Your body reacted accordingly. Tension before entries. Relief after wins. Heaviness after losses. Restlessness during slow periods. Those reactions weren't about money. They were about meaning. Your nervous system was constantly scanning the market for reassurance. And reassurance is a terrible thing to need from a probabilistic environment. Because probabilities don't care how you feel. So the nervous system stayed activated. That's why many traders feel mentally exhausted, even on low-volume days. They weren't trading much, but they were emotionally engaged the entire time. When validation seeking fades, something changes at the physiological level. Your body no longer treats every trade as a referendum. It treats trades as events, information, nothing more. That reduces baseline tension, and reduced tension improves decision quality. This is why emotional independence improves performance indirectly, not because it makes you smarter, but because it frees up cognitive bandwidth. Now let's address a fear many traders have. If I stop seeking validation, won't I lose motivation? No. You lose urgency, not motivation. Urgency is emotional pressure. Motivation is commitment. Most traders confuse the two. Urgency feels powerful, but it burns out fast. Motivation is quiet, but it lasts. When validation seeking drives you, motivation is fragile. It depends on wins. It collapses after losses. When internal trust drives you, motivation stabilizes. You show up because this is what you do, not because you need reassurance. This is how professionals operate in every high-performance field. They don't need constant praise. They rely on standards. Now let's talk about identity. Earlier, we talked about how traders mistakenly use P and L as identity feedback. When validation is removed, identity begins to anchor differently. You stop seeing yourself as the trader who wins or the trader who lost today. You start seeing yourself as the trader who follows process, the trader who manages risk, the trader who stays emotionally contained. That identity is resilient. It doesn't collapse under drawdown. It doesn't inflate under streaks. And because identity is stable, behavior becomes stable. This is the point where consistency becomes possible. Not because the market suddenly behaves, but because you do. Now let's address something practical. How do you know if you're still validation seeking? Watch for these signals. Feeling unsettled on no trade days. Needing to end green emotionally. Over-trading when bored. Trading when tired to feel productive. Feeling relief after wins instead of neutrality. Feeling exposed after losses. These are not failures. They are indicators. They show you where self-worth is still external. The goal is not to eliminate these feelings instantly. The goal is to notice them without obeying them. That's emotional maturity. Another powerful practice is redefining your internal scoreboard. Most traders keep score like this. Wins equals good, losses equals bad. That scoreboard creates emotional instability. Instead, create a behavioral scoreboard. Did I follow rules? Did I respect risk? Did I stop when planned? Did I avoid emotional decisions? That scoreboard produces self-respect. And self-respect is far more stabilizing than confidence. Confidence can vanish. Self-respect accumulates. Let's talk about what this shift does long-term. When validation is no longer required, trading becomes sustainable. You stop dreading losing streaks. You stop chasing emotional relief. You stop burning mental energy trying to feel okay. You become patient, not forced patience, real patience. Because there's no emotional urgency pushing you to act. You wait because waiting doesn't threaten you anymore. This is where many traders finally click, not because they learned something new, but because something old fell away. The need to prove, the need to be right, the need to feel validated. When those needs loosen, execution improves naturally, not perfectly, but consistently. And consistency is what compounds. Now let's talk about the final shift, the one most traders never reach. At some point, trading stops being about feeling good. It becomes about being aligned. aligned with process, aligned with behavior, aligned with long-term goals. You don't need the market to like you. You don't need it to reassure you. You don't need it to confirm anything. You respect it. You engage with it professionally. And when the session ends, you leave it there. You don't carry the day into your evening. You don't replay it endlessly. You don't measure yourself by it. That's freedom. Not freedom from losses. Freedom from emotional dependency. And that freedom is what allows longevity. This is why calm traders last longer. Not because they care less, but because they are no longer asking the market to give them something it cannot. They've taken responsibility for their emotional state, and that responsibility is empowering. Let's close this with something important. If you recognize yourself in this episode, nothing is wrong with you. Validation seeking is common. It's human. It means you care. But caring does not require dependency. You can care deeply and still remain emotionally independent. That's the balance we're building. And that's a trader's hidden edge. If this episode resonated with you, hit the like button, subscribe for more deep dives into trading psychology, and leave a comment below. What do you usually look for from the market? Profits, reassurance, or proof? Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next episode.